Hello, everybody. Sorry, I was just waiting for a few more people to get from the waiting room. This is Galileo Disperati speaking. I work at Martel Innovate, which is one of the partners in this project. We're dealing with dissemination communication, and therefore we're going to host the webinar today. Before we get to our program, I just want to talk about a couple of very mundane common and garden rules that you probably all know, given the time of webinars and Zooming and whatnot. So we'll just quickly and kindly ask you to keep your microphones muted throughout the webinar. And use the chat for the questions that you would like to ask. And we're going to get to these questions at the end of the 3 presentations that we're going to have today. There's going to be also some other partners in the project that will help us out answering any questions you might have. This webinar is being currently recorded, and the recording will be sent to all the registered participants and will be anyway available as soon as possible, ideally within the end of the week on the project website. Same goes for the presentation slides. A version of the slides that was created for the previous webinar is already available on the website. Very soon I will post also some useful links in the Open Call chat, meaning the general info page of the Open Call, the frequently asked questions, and our help desk email in case you might have any other questions about the call. And without further ado, I will just leave the floor to the project coordinator, Fausto Giunchiglia from University of Trento. Please, Fausto.
Good morning, everybody. So my goal here is really to give a short presentation of WeNet. Next, please. And let's start with the WeNet concept. So the key goal here is really the idea to connect people. And we connect people by developing a platform which absorbs the different diversities among people, still supporting for this diversity to integrate well. Why so? Because as in usual life, we do need all the time people that they are different from us, they know different things. So I need a doctor to be cured, I need a plumber to fix the plumbing, and so on and so forth. So the idea is really to support in the net the kind of interactions that we do in everyday life. And because of this, is the goals is really to provide the support for the diversity-aware machine-mediated social relations. In the same way as the internet connects machines which are heterogeneous, we don't want to connect people. This is a key thrust of the presentation. Sorry, go ahead. Next slide. Okay, so now given this, how we do this, I'm gonna now present the key notions. The key notions is really that first of all, how do we connect people? We connect people by making profiles public. And of course, there is a big issue of GDPR and so privacy. So a lot of the project and also the issues of the project are going to be about making the right information available, still protecting the privacy of people. Then if you think about this, since we are all in the virtual world, to allow for different people to be interacting, we need to provide a search of these profiles. And then, of course, the next step, suppose that now we found the right people, then we needed to make sure that the different interactions align. And ultimately, we do need all these people to be incentivized so that we don't have free surfers, but people who help and people that are helped, where the same person can be at the same time or in different times, a producer of the help of the service and the consumer of the help of the service. So the key part is ethical and privacy guidelines. A lot of time spent into this, and also on the platform. Some of these issues are going to be also on the call. And one last point, we have so far used the current technology for making people interact, actually students in various universities. I'll say more about this later. So the ultimate goal of all of this is to really build a platform, infrastructure, and that can be used and then really foster the development, the usage of apps on top of this infrastructure so that they exploit the principles of WeNet. Next one. So overall, next one, what are the objectives? As I said from what I said before, pretty much you can just go through quickly the 5 objects above. So number one, we do need to develop the science and technology. I gave some hints in the previous slide, but I'm going to give a little bit more later. But besides this, ultimately, what do you want to do with this? First of all, we want to develop the platform, the WeNet online platform, which is exactly the one that's going to be used in this course. Then we want to really build a large-scale university, large-scale pilots, experimenting apps, developing on top of the platform. And so far, we've done a lot of application with the students all around the world, as I said before. And we do hope that out of this open call, so there'll be more interesting, more in the sense of bigger number, interesting applications also in other sectors, but also in the same sectors. And then all of these also providing a research infrastructure for community building, which is pretty much what we mean by this. We mean like a portal where not only you can ultimately get access to the platform, but also to the data sets, which are going to be data sets for personal data, suitably anonymized, GDPR compliant, ethics compliant for research on this data. And clear, as I said, our last objective, transversal to everything, is being clear about the ethical principle that we follow. Next step. So these are the pilots have run so far. So our infrastructure is quite robust. We are running all over the world. And we do hope that in the future will be more open calls, which will be able to start more applications developed out of the open calls, which are going to be available in, as I said before, before. Okay, next one, please. I was reading the message. Scenarios. Okay, good one. Next one. Right. So I think that the best, I'll stop reading the messages. I hope that Daniele or Galileo will answer that. Sorry, I got distracted. So let me see that the motivating example. So WeNet ultimately through the apps will appear as an app, like as an app. And the typical app that we are now discussing is someone who wants to help, and actually in this moment you want to have lunch together. So notice that he said, does anyone, who does he send a message to? Does he send to some friends, to some group? No, he sent to WeNet. And WeNet, of course, has this kind of large infrastructure, large community of people, and ask them, and then say yes or no. And because of this, then WeNet will take the burden to answer back to Bob and say, these people have accepted, and then Bob, next please. And then Bob at the end will be able to decide which one is going to be the one he selects, or maybe even all of them. So WeNet is all about enabling this. Enabling this means really getting a connection from Bob on one side, which is the service consumer, the help consumer, to the right person on the other side, which is going to be the service producers. But how do we do this? Next, please. We do this by building a software stack of technologies and services. And briefly now, I'm going to just present them in this presentation, high level, so that you get an idea of the kind of application that you have in mind. First of all, through the profile, we need to be able to search the unknown, because when the person sends the query, it doesn't really know who is going to connect to the profile. WeNet knows, and of course, WeNet is very careful in not sharing information. The GDPR is guaranteed in many ways, but for sure because the profile, first of all, is stored by WeNet, and of course the profile does not need to memorize identifying information. That need to WeNet that needs to know what are the properties which qualify a person to be qualified for the given service. The next one. Then, of course, based on that, we really provide a set of incentives that the people can exploit. So, in the platform provides APIs for setting up incentives and using incentives. Next one. Then, in the other part of the technology is like the interaction model. What do we mean by interaction model? The possibility for controlling on the user side, the interaction modalities with the people, what is allowed, what is forbidden, a set of constraints, a set of norms. You can think about it in this way. And okay, next one. But then, if you think about this, Bob may be reaching a few people, but these people may be interested or willing, but they have no time because they're busy, for instance, their work. How does WeNet know? Because WeNet, of course, with the permission of the users, collects data about situational context, for instance, where they are, and whether they are busy or not. Where they are, why? Because, for instance, if I am Bob and I live in one place, I want to meet a person, I need to be in the same place, and so on and so forth. So the situational context, in a sense, can be thought of as the main means by which we are connected to the real world. Next one. And then the conversational context. So maybe a part of the protocol, Bob may want to know and interact with someone he doesn't know, or may want to interact with someone he knows very well through the Ego network. So the conversational context stores all this information, which is about the kind of relations and possible interaction between people. All of these 5 items that I just mentioned are 5 functions that are completely implementing the platform. They have developed up to a certain level. Some of them are available, some of them are less available. Of course, you can get more information, but I think that all of this gives you an idea of the kind of technology stack that we have developed. But of course, this technology stack built on sort of underlying transversal assumptions. First of all, and next one, please, is diversity. What do we mean by diversity? By diversity here, we mean we have a sociological notion of diversity. We have basically classified diversity into items like what's called superficial diversity, like gender, national, and deep diversity, what we call like the skills that a person has, what it knows to do. The first is something that you don't really want to pay too much attention to. The first one is really important if you really want to achieve some goal. And all of these is also embedded in the platform. Next one, and then of course the platform is, as I said, it does have some ethics guidelines which it satisfies, which have to do with, and the main idea is to have a private profile and the public profile, where the public profile is where you put all the information that you need, which is relevant for the query. You don't need to know my name to ask for help from me if you assume that I'm good in computer science or anything like this. So this is the general, next please. This is the next general idea of what they've done. There are more scenarios. All these scenarios we gave, I don't have time now to read them. I give them to you just to give an idea of the kind of application scenarios that we've thought that can provide good suggestions. So they concern physical activity, food, eating together, or like time management. And next one. So this, I think, pretty much concludes my presentation. These are just the partners. So as you saw, we've done pilots all over the place in the world. In fact, if you find out that the last line are our 5 non-European partners, like in China, Mexico, Mongolia, India, and Paraguay, which will be very important in setting up all these experiments worldwide that you saw earlier on in the presentation. Next one, please. I think I'm done. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And now the floor back to Galileo. Thank you.
Thanks, Fausto. Yeah, I will in turn leave the floor to Daniele. Daniele, I will stop sharing my screen so you can share yours. Thanks. And the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks, Galileo, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Daniele Miorandi. I am the CEO of UOPER, and within the WeNet project, I am leading the work package responsible for integration of the WeNet technology stack and also for coordinating exploitation activities at the project level. So in this presentation, I want to give you a little bit of context and details about the open call before leaving the floor to my colleague Giulia, who will tell you more about the formal aspects, requirements, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's start. I think the first point is important for you in order to write a successful application is why we, from the WeNet consortium, are putting money on the table for this open call. And our objective as a consortium is to maximize the impacts of the WeNet project. And we plan to leverage the open call to do it by involving additional institutions, so entities which are not part of the consortium, exposing a larger number of individuals and communities to the WeNet vision and tool. And the fact that you're already here, it's already kind of well reassuring in this sense. Increasing the diversity in terms of communities of users and data collected, as from Fausto's presentation, this project is all about diversity. Collecting data to feed our own research infrastructure, RI for brief. Collecting feedback from early adopters on the usability, usefulness, and ethical implications of a WeNet platform and research infrastructure. And of course, last but not least, to foster the creation of a community of innovators around the WeNet platform and technology. So why should you apply now? What's the motivation on your side? Well, first and foremost, of course, we are giving funding up to 50,000 euros per project without requiring any equity, okay? So this is a grant and you basically are paid to carry out the activities that are planned in your proposal. If approved, you keep the IPRs and we are happy with it. So no strings attached. You have access to the WeNet platform and applications, so to online instances of the platform, to a source code for all platform component and for the applications, which ideally should allow you to save time and cost. And of course, you have access to knowledge and competencies within the WeNet consortium and within the larger WeNet community of early adopters. So some key dates and figures. First, the submission deadline is in a few days from now, or at the end of this month. We plan to take more or less 3 months for the evaluation. Hopefully we will manage to be a bit faster, but I cannot really promise anything about it. But in 3 months, I swear you will get notification of acceptance. And we do expect to kick off all projects at the beginning of February 2022, which means that by that date, we will have all the contract signed and all the negotiations closed. Financial support, overall, we have a total budget for the open call of 250,000 euros. We have 3 tracks, more on it later on, and depending on which track you apply to, there is a maximum budget you can ask for your own proposal. 50K for track A and C, and 25K for track B. What is this money meant to cover? Well, of course, direct costs, personnel, equipment, and travel related to the execution of the project. And there is a 25% overhead flat rate, standard Horizon 2020 rules, okay? If you're not familiar and if you have doubt, just drop us a line at opencall@internetofass.eu. So duration of the project, for track A and C, we have a maximum duration of 6 months, and for track B, 4 months, okay? So we are talking about quite small, very focused and narrow projects. Okay, in this project, we are asking you to use or leverage the WeNet technology. So let me give you a bit of overview about it. There are 3 main technology assets that have been developed within the WeNet project. A set of applications, a platform, which is really kind of an application backend, and a research infrastructure for collecting and sharing data. These free assets are targeting different categories of users. Applications are meant to be used by individuals and communities. The platform by innovators and developers who will use the platform to develop apps, but then can be used by individuals and communities. And last but not least, the research infrastructure, which is mainly targeting scientists and researchers. So what is the platform? The platform is actually a set of modular open software components that enable the fast development and deployment of diversity-aware applications and services. It is a platform, so it supports a plurality of applications. It can be mobile apps, web app, chat applications, whatever you can think of. Applications by registered developers interact with the platform through a set of APIs. And there is a production version which is maintained online by the WeNet consortium. Application can also be used for connecting to third-party services for collecting relevant data on user behavior. You can think, for example, of mobile phone sensors from mobile app, calendar applications if you want to get some data on the whereabouts or routines of the users, social media streams, open data portals, and so on and so forth. Okay, so really, I mean, creativity is the limit here. And data streams from these third-party services and applications are used by means of artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning methods and algorithms to personalize the user experience and to properly account for diversity dimension. Okay, I want to highlight that this AI, machine learning, deep learning part is already part of the platform. Okay, so it's not something you need to cater for in your own proposal because we are already providing it. So in terms of WeNet applications, there are 3 applications that are currently available. The first is the Ask for Help chat application, which allows WeNet users to ask questions to the reference community, answer open questions, and approve the best provided answer for each question. Okay, it's a chat application that works on Telegram. So there is basically a Telegram app that is connected to a chatbot, which interacts with the WeNet platform. And this is something which we have been testing quite extensively in Italy, Denmark, UK, Mongolia, and Paraguay. So it's already battle tested in a sense. The second one is the iLog context and behavior monitoring app, which is an Android app that monitors the user context and behavior by looking at data streams coming from mobile phones sensors. Okay, this is something which has been developed by University of Trento. It's also it has been extensively tested and validated, and it can be used to basically get more about the user behavior and context. Last but not least, we have a diversity survey app, which has been designed to allow the construction of a diversity profile of WeNet users. So it includes quite a large number of questions, and the answers are used through some computations to populate diversity profile fields in the WeNet user profile. The research infrastructure is an e-infrastructure and a set of procedures and guidelines aimed at managing the full life cycle of data generated within the WeNet experimental activities. So we are talking about data on human behavior, how people behave and how they interact with each other through the WeNet applications. And the research infrastructure is meant to cover the whole life cycle. So the collection, the processing, the storage, the access, and the analysis of such data. So what are we funding? Well, we have 3 different tracks in this open call. Track A, what we call the app, is about developing a new use case, a new app, and run an experiment with a reference community. So collecting data. Track B is slightly different and is smaller in scope in a sense, because the idea here is that you have a community of users you want to involve. You think there is a good fit with one of the existing WeNet apps, and you basically experiment with your community by using available WeNet application. And of course, you collect data and you make it available through the research infrastructure. And then there is track C, which is totally open. Here, well, we are just not putting any boundary or constraint. Anything that is relevant for the open call scope and contribute to the objectives and goals of the WeNet project is welcome and acceptable. Okay, some more details about the first track, the app one. So here, you need to use the WeNet platform for developing your own application. So your app should use the WeNet platform APIs, in particular, what is called the service APIs. You have to bring a community of users. So you need to bring the users into the picture. And indicatively, but this, of course, it's just an indication, we do expect that you should involve at least 50 new users that are going to use your app, which is interacting with your platform. Okay, so this is kind of the mechanics of this stuff. Run a pilot experiment with a community of users, collect experimental data, anonymize it, and make it available for inclusion in the WeNet research infrastructure under a Creative Commons Plus license. Track B data is somehow simpler. The idea is to reuse an existing WeNet app, bring a community of users. Well, here, depending on the type of, so to say, research goal that your project might have, you might want to go for quantitative studies, so involving a larger community of users, around 200, we think can be a good number, or smaller in case it is a niche application on which you can do qualitative analysis, 20 to 50 users. And also in this case, the idea is to collect data and feed this data, anonymized, into the research infrastructure, again, under a CC+ license. And track C, of course, open track, well, it's open to whatever, as long as, of course, this is relevant to the scope and goals of the WeNet project. And we do not foresee specific requirements for this track. So some additional details, something that is very important for us is ethics. We take an integrated ethics approach, and we are using participatory and value-sensitive research approaches. So we strongly recommend you to adopt an ethical perspective throughout your proposed activity. There is actually a specific section in the proposal template about ethical aspects in your application. Okay, something a little bit more formal, but we will provide to you access to a WeNet platform and existing WeNet apps. And formally, from a GDPR perspective, we will act as data processor. Okay, so you will act as data controller for any personal data being collected throughout experimental activities with users. And this, of course, is something that we would like to make sure that you elaborate well in the GDPR/ethics section of the proposal. Feeding the WeNet research infrastructure is a focal point of both tracks A and B, because we want to collect experimental data about human behavior and human-to-human machine-mediated interactions. So it is mandatory to spell out how the data collected will be unbiased. Sorry. I mentioned before, but the data will be made available to WeNet under a CC+ license. Well, if you're not really familiar with the scheme, the CC+ license is a combination of a Creative Commons official license, unmodified, taken verbatim from the official one, plus another separate and independent agreement, which shall include the right to WeNet Consortium to adapt, remix, and distribute the updated data, and impose additional or different terms of conditions to recipients when data distributed through the research infrastructure. The reason being that we are making available data through the research infrastructure only for research purposes, okay? So for non-commercial purposes. And well, we need to make sure that we have the legal arrangements in place for doing this right. Okay, so something more about the WeNet technology, but instead of showing you slides, let me do something a little bit more interesting. Okay, so this is actually the project website, internetofus.eu, and here you can actually find some pieces of relevant information. If you go on resources, on deliverables, for example, okay, you find here deliverable 6.3 WeNet platform version 2.0, okay. So if you click on it, you will get the PDF. This includes all details and all links to the platform components, to the APIs, specifications, and so on and so forth, okay. Something else in terms of resources, you have an e-learning platform. Let me see if this works, of course, mind the dim effect. It is, well, it's a learning management system specifically tailored for the project. And here we have a track 3, which is called the WeNet platform, how to develop diversity-aware apps with WeNet, which should give you access to some material explaining to you the platform, how it works, the APIs, and there are also a couple of hands-on tutorials on how to build, on the one hand, the kind of a hello world with WeNet, and on the other hand, simple chat application, similar to the Ask for Help, actually. Okay, let me go back to the project website, because here under resources, you find also the WeNet Hub. What is this? Well, this is basically the portal that gives you access to the WeNet platform, to the online production version of the platform. So you can actually, well, create a new profile, register, you can log in. You can actually see which applications are available. It's also kind of a marketplace, okay? And you can try them out for yourself. You can also promote as a developer and start tinkering with new WeNet applications, okay? So in case you want to get some hands-on on what's happening under the hood with the platform, well, probably the fastest way, instead of reading boring documentation, is just to go there and play with it. And yeah, and I think I'm done with it. Thanks for your attention. Galileo, back to you.
Thanks, Daniel. I think that Julia can share directly her screen. And there's been some questions and some answers in the meantime, but we'll get to them after the presentation. Thanks, Julia. You can take it away.
Okay, good afternoon to everybody. I'm Giulia Tosato from UOPER, and I will briefly explain the application process and the evaluation process. Anyway, you can find an accurate description of those processes in the guidelines for applicants made available through the WeNet website. So let's start. In order to apply to the open call, it is very important to download and read carefully all the supporting material made available through the WeNet website. The supporting material includes the guidelines for applicants, the proposal template, the privacy policy. Plus, you can find 3 other useful documents. The subgrant agreement template, and the final report, and the financial report. It is very important to download also those 3 documents and read them before applying, in order to understand the expectation after the selection in terms of legal requirements, results of the research, and cost reporting. After you download all the documents and you read them, you have to check if your organization meets all the eligibility criteria. If it doesn't, your proposal will be discarded. You can find a list of the eligibility criteria in the guidelines for applicants, but here you have a list of the main criteria. The first one is the type of applicant. On the guidelines, you can find a list of the eligible types, but please remind that only legal entities are eligible, and the open call is not open to individuals. The second criteria is the eligible country. The applicant must be legally established in an EU member state, or in an associated country, or in a third country. In order to have a complete list of the eligible countries, you have to check the updated list published by the European Commission. Your proposal must be written in English and submitted through the dedicated page of the WeNet website. The proposal submitted through other means will not be considered. The absence of the conflict of interest is another important point. Applicants cannot be WeNet consortium partners or be under a contractual agreement with WeNet consortium members. You can find the list of the consortium members in the WeNet website. Your project cannot receive double funding. That means that the same activity cannot be funded twice through the use of public funds. You will be asked to declare that before submitting the proposal. Last but not least elements is the deadline. If you miss the submission deadline, your proposal will be discarded. So let's go forward. Once you're sure that your organization is eligible, you have to prepare the proposal. We can see here the proposal in template. Please remind that the proposal template is mandatory, and if you don't use the proposal template, your proposal will be discarded. Here you can see the template. The guidance text is in blue, and will give you the useful indications on the text style, on the size to be used, the maximum length of the whole proposal, and of the single sections. Plus, the guidance text will give you indication on the content expected for each section. Remind that the section of the proposal correspond to the evaluation criteria described on the guidelines for applicant. So we can quickly see the 7 section of the proposal. Here you have the first page, the overview of the proposal, the description of the methodology and the approach, maximum 3 pages. The complementarity with existing WeNet pilots or activities, maximum 1 page. Ethics and data protection, as Daniele said before, it is a very important section, maximum 2 pages. The excellence of the team, maximum 1 page. The project activities and milestones, maximum 1 page. And the value for money, the value for money, maximum 1 page. Now we can see how to submit the proposal once you prepared it. You can go to the WeNet website. Under Open Call, you will find the Open Call submission form. You have to add all the data required, the name of your organization, the submitting person full name, the submitting person email, the VAT number, if it is applicable to you, your address, the country, the city, the zip code, the type of beneficiary. Here you have a list. How did you become aware of the Open Call? You have to choose the track A, B, or C, and then insert the abstract of your proposal. Here, upload your proposal. You have to add the PDF of your proposal, and then submit everything. You have also to confirm all the eligibility requirements and the privacy policy, and answer to the security question, of course. Okay, now we can go back to the presentation. Okay. Okay. So it's very important before write your proposal to read all the technical material that Daniele already showed you, to watch the video courses, and to fill, of course, all the submission form on the website. And as I said, do not miss the deadline of the next week. Okay. There are other three things that is very important to consider before applying. The person submitting the proposal must be empowered to represent the organization. Only one proposal will be accepted per legal entity, and the proposal must not violate IPR of third parties. Okay. Once you have submitted your proposal, the evaluation process will start. Your proposal will be subjected to an eligibility filter. If your proposal is not eligible, you will receive a rejection letter. But if it is eligible, it will be supposed to a remote evaluation. After the remote evaluation made by at least 2 experts, your proposal will be shortlisted and evaluated by the panel review that will form a list of the final list of the selected proposals. If your proposal will be selected, you will receive an invitation to negotiation. If your proposal won't be selected, you will receive a rejection letter, and you will be put on a waiting list in case some other proposal will not succeed the negotiation process. Okay. Okay. After the end of the evaluation process, we will have the negotiation part. We will evaluate the legal existence of your organization. We will ask you a bank account ID form, and a sub-grant agreement will be signed. Remember that a template of the sub-grant agreement is available on the WeNet website. The selected applicant will be also required to adhere to the privacy guidelines and the ethic code of the WeNet consortium. Here you have the indicative dates of the evaluation process. As Daniele already said, we expect to end the evaluation period by the end of the year, and to have the kickoff meeting of the project by the 1st of February of the next year. Last thing that you have to know: after the end of the project, your organization will be required to provide a final report. You can find a template of the final report on the WeNet website, and a financial report reporting the necessary effort and cost according to the Horizon 2020 rules. Okay, I'm done. So thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Julia. I see that there are many questions in the chat, and I saw that that Daniele already got into action, and some other consortium member to answer specifically about the all the questions in regards to the APIs. I've been taking notes of the rest. We can just go through them. We have a little under 15 minutes for this, and yeah, so let's get into it. We have a specific question on the APIs that maybe we could answer to in detail. This is depending on what Daniele can specifically say about this. But basically, it's about the support for uploading multimedia data, images and videos to the WeNet server. And if yes, does it support also APIs for mobile phones to read images, video, and so on and so forth? I don't know if you had already had a look at this question, Daniele. Anything that can be added here and there, or the DC 6.3, it's still a good primer in this sense?
Well, before basically answering to this one, Galileo, I just wanted to show, because I guess this might be useful for most of the guys. Okay, this is a Swagger, but basically shows you the specification of the service REST APIs. Okay, so basically your app, unless you connect a third-party data streams, in which case there is a different set of APIs. This set of APIs are the ones you are most likely to use to connect your app to the platform, okay? It is quite minimalistic, but it gives you quite an idea of what can be done programmatically, in particular, the kind of operations you can have on the wizard profile and the part on tasks, okay? The part on task is a bit tricky because I wouldn't say it's non-standard, but it is meant to work in a slightly different way than you probably are used to when you define the behavior of your applications. But if you take the example of the ask for help request, because that's a very simple one in a sense, well, a help request is a task, okay? And this task has its own life cycle. Think of it as a finite state machines. And depending on the interactions, on the messages that are exchanged, you move from one state to the other one, okay? And I mean, you can find the link to the documentation of APIs of all single components in deliverable 6.3, okay? So deliverable 6.3 is basically kind of a catalog of all the links to all the repositories, the documentations, and so on and so forth. Now, coming back to the specific questions about, let me find it here. About where is it? To basically upload images or multimedia, the short answer is no. This is not something but for which there is an API to store it into the WeNet platform. So you basically, well, you can use any other online service, S3 buckets, whatever you want to use them. And this is something that should be managed directly by your application. Okay, so it's something that is basically out of the perimeter of the platform. I hope this answers the question.
Thanks, Daniele. Another question that come in now, and getting back to the top and going in order, unless questions have been already answered. This one is about approval on the project. Given that the project is approved, when will WeNet transfer money for starting the project? For example, hiring programmers to develop applications, or applicants will get the fund at the end of the project?
I can answer to that. All the payment will be provided at the end of the project after the approval of the final report.
Thanks, Julia. Another question about storage of information. If WeNet stores information, where the information is stored and how is GDPR guaranteed, are we authorized as a third party to gather this data?
Okay, okay, this is for me. You have to remind that in the WeNet project we have two different environments: the platform and the research infrastructure. In the platform, the company will act as a controller, and we as a uHopper will act as a processor, and that's for the part of the collecting data. Then the data will be shared on the research infrastructure, but remind that you can upload only anonymized data on the research infrastructure. So one of the focal point of the GDPR compliance part of your proposal must be focused on how you think to anonymize the data you collect through the WeNet platform.
Thank you very much. For the next one, I think it's more specific on users. So let's say I need a user and the task to receive back a ranked list of users. Therefore, I must create a task first. This is assuming this. How can I do this, and what does a task need to be accepted? Does it return a task ID when created? I hope this is clear enough for you.
We'll take the last one about the task. Yes, basically once you create a new task, you get back an ID. For the other part, I would actually leave the floor to either Christos or Vasileios from Open University, who are probably in a better position to provide you some more details, in addition to what they already brought in the chat.
Excellent. If they're still online, I think that would be a good opportunity to answer. Please.
Hi. Yes. We answered in the text, but moreover, when a task is created, we have a list of responders, and basically that list is ranked and sent back. So here the developer can actually get the ranked list, but only from responders to the task and not the whole WeNet user base.
Thanks. I think there's a straight follow-up to this question, which is at the very bottom of the chat. Can I connect to users that did not respond to my task? How do I find a users I did not have any connection to?
Okay, short answer, no, you can't. There is no way to do it through the service APIs.
Okay. This is a broad question, which is about the user base of WeNet. How large is it? How many users are in the platform per country?
So I think it really depends on what we consider here. If you're interested to know how many users were involved in the last round of pilots, the one that used the Ask for Help app, I think it was 220 something, but I mean, in the range 200 plus, okay. If you consider also the ones that took the diversity survey and that use the iLog app, I think it is a couple of thousands at the moment. But keep in mind, But for this open call, we ask you to bring your own community of users, okay? So you should not rely on existing WeNet users, but you should bring some fresh bodies into the platform. So.
Thanks, Daniele. This is a question related to the proposal, so maybe for Julia. Given a limitation of pages for each section in the proposal, can we set references of state-of-the-art to support what we write in the proposal? If yes, does this count as an occupied space in the proposal?
So let me take this one. So basically, yes, you can add the references. Of course, I mean, the reference doesn't really count in terms of space, but keep in mind that evaluators are not bound to read whatever you put as a reference there, okay? So evaluators will basically provide their evaluation based only on what is written in the proposal. They might autonomously decide to open any link or go through additional material, but their evaluation is not bound to this. I'm looking at Julia to see if I said, okay, she nods, so I think it's good.
Excellent. We have another question that just came in, which is, what is the full list of data type that we can exchange with the WeNet infrastructure?
You're not going to exchange any type of data with the research infrastructure, because the research infrastructure is for storing experimental data. If you want to have more details, as I see nobody from Trent or from the RI team is in the call, I would suggest you to drop us an email, Saverio, so that we can come back with a written answer and also provide some more details in the FAQ document, which, by the way, I strongly encourage you all to check out, because we are basically putting there all the answers to the questions we are getting from applicants. So there might be already a good answer to your question there.
Thank you very much. We have just a couple of minutes left if anybody has a quick question. Otherwise, I think we can close the webinar. And oh, okay, just somebody took me up on the offer. The question is there only one level, for instance, user when querying the platform, or there is also a super user level, for instance, a sort of data admin that can access the data with a different procedure?
Okay, so let me take this one. If we talk about the platforms, users do not interact directly with the platform. It is the application, an authorized application by official WeNet developer that interacts with the platform, okay? So everything is mediated through the application. So there is this other level of interaction on how users interact with your app. So Paolo, if you need to define different roles or different classes of users, this is something that you can do at the application level, but this is going to be fully transparent to the platform itself. I hope this answers your question.
Thanks. I think we can close the webinar here. Let me quickly get back to the screen just to give you a couple just to remind you about our contacts. Other than that, thank you very much for attending, and thanks to all the speakers that were present today. Looking forward to receive your proposals, and for any additional questions, please refer to the website, to the specific open call pages, and to our help desk email. So thanks again, and Bye-bye. Have a nice afternoon.